Hey everybody, I am going to show you how I trim bowls and talk about some of the particulars and stuff. Pretty limited tools. I've got just I think this is the Mud Tools Do It All something or other. I don't know. But loop tools, whatever is fine. Then I've got a bowl. This is 7 pounds. When it's dripping wet, it's 14 inches across. And when it's fired, it's like an even 12 inches. It's pretty nice. So this is kind of a standard shape that I make. People seem to like it. It's good, like a serving size. I don't use the little clay balls to attach the bowl to the bat. I just use a little bit of water, and it seems to suction on there okay. Just a little bit of water on the bat. You see, I'm having a hard time even moving this to center. So it creates some sort of suction or some kind of seal. I don't really know. I'm not asking too many questions because it just seems to work. So centering, I don't really do the tapping it. That has never really worked for me. So I just hold my fingers steady, rotate it, and wherever it makes contact, that's the high point. So I push it in the opposite direction until it's making contact all the way around. Almost there. So, just in general, when I throw bowls, I'm only thinking about the interior curve, having it be nice and smooth, because all of this exterior stuff happens at this stage. You trim the exterior, you throw the interior. So that's something to keep in mind when you're making bowls. The other thing is that the exterior is meant to mirror the interior. Not mirror, but go with it. You want a consistent wall. You don't want thin spots, you don't want thick spots. So depending on how you throw the interior, this is just a foregone conclusion. You're just reacting to what is already on the interior. So this is all on there. I press down a little bit, whatever. It's pretty attached. So I'm just taking a bunch of this off at once. This all just has to go. Boy, this clay trims so nice. I caught it right at the right stage. That's why I'm making this video today, because the clay is just perfect. I tend to recycle my scraps because I'm cheap. So just knocking off some clay, not getting too persnickety about shape or surface or contour or anything like that. Just removing a bunch of the structural clay that you can't, when you're throwing bowls, you have to have extra clay in order for the curve to be supported, especially on the bottom there. So at this point, you start taking it off. Boy, trimming is so satisfying. When it's coming off in long ribbons like this, that's like the best thing ever. I'm using the curved side of my tool here. It's a little bit broader, so I feel like it takes a little bit more off. I'm not a guy that keeps my trimming tool super sharp. I probably should be, but I just don't. Okay, so at this point I'll start looking at the shape, because I'm about to define the width of my foot. It looks pretty good to me. So I'm gonna dig in here with the sharp end with a nice sharp corner. I really like this tool. I got it about a year ago probably, and it's just about the only thing I use to trim anymore. It really does do everything, as the title advertises. So just defining the width of the foot ring here, not getting too crazy about taking it down to the final depth, but so working from that, now you define the interior. Just dig in. I mean, it's one of those things when you're throwing these, you don't want to leave too much clay on the bottom here, but you don't want to leave it so thin that it's tough to trim and you've got to be scared of trimming through. It's a fine balance, and I historically have not been good at this, but lately I've put more emphasis and more time on trying to figure this process out, and it's come a long way. I've found a lot of things, little tricks that work for me, which I shall describe. So this is still a little bit thick, the foot ring itself. This is a personal preference thing, but it's also got a function. You don't want it to be too thin because it'll be real fragile. You don't want your feet to be so thin that they're going to chip, because you'll get customers coming back being mad at you. The way that I define this interior depth, the interior thickness, is by feel. There's lots of ways to do it. I've seen people tapping and listening to it, but I don't really know what they're listening for. But I use a pressure method where I just press in the middle, and once it starts to give way, once I feel that clay start to move, I know that it's pretty darn thin and I better back off. So I'm going to take thin layers off over and over until I can feel that. This is something that you're just going to have to practice. There's no standard surefire way. It's just a feel thing, as so many things in pottery are. Thin layers. Just taking it out to the foot ring there, and then checking it again. Okay, I see it starting to give way. So that's about right. So at this point, I will finalize the interior of this foot ring by using this metal rib and just smoothing it out, defining the curve a little bit. I'm taking a little bit of clay off here, but barely anything. But this clay has got a little bit of grog in it, and I don't necessarily want that surface on the finished bowl. Personal preference kind of thing, I guess. I've seen some very nice rough, with a capital R, bowls, but that's not what I'm going for here. Alright, so this is a big moment, because I have defined this depth, and it's hard to capture on camera, but this is deeper than this. And remember, we're trying to go for consistent, nice, even walls all the way through. No thick spots, no thin spots. So this depth should match this depth on the other side of the foot ring. because if it's a nice even wall, it's just going to be a nice curve all the way through. So that's something that took me forever to figure out. But since I've started doing it that way, it's been, my bowls have been lighter. I don't trim through barely ever. And it's just been a really good rule of thumb to operate under. So I'm slowly working towards that foot ring. You want nice continual curves. No abrupt changes in direction. Generally, I feel like you can, your sense of touch lets you know the which side needs more. I can tell if they're even or not better with my fingers than with my eyes. It's close. So that's about it, I would say. So at this point, it's just a matter of finishing this foot ring, finishing this outside surface, and getting it off the wheel and letting it dry slow. So I'm looking at I know the interior of this bowl is really just a nice gradual curve. It's not quite as pronounced as this is. So I've got some clay to take off right in this kind of shoulder area. I do the shaping with this metal rib, just scraping off a little bit at a time. I think that it helps the surface be a little bit smoother at the end. Also, this whole surface is trimming clay away versus just like this little part, so that makes the curve a lot smoother too. That's another little trick that I've figured out. Check the profile. Looks like it might have moved a little bit. Yep. Well, that water is dried up, hasn't it? Bowl's not really attached anymore, but that's okay. We're almost done. We're done with the heavy lifting anyway. Something that's pretty important is to keep downward pressure. Keep downward pressure on this the center here. I think that helps keep the piece on the wheel. That's whether you're using the clay wads or not. Also gives you an anchor point for when you can to bring your hands together, so it keeps them steady. So just keep an eye on the profile. Once it's nice and sleek, once I feel like it's matching the the interior contour. That's all I'm after. I'm not going past that. It's pretty good. I like that. I like that profile. It's nice and smooth. Okay. Still even here. Sometimes you take off too much and whatever. So I will take a little bit off of this on the inside and the outside. Once again, this tool is fantastic with all the surfaces, the trimming surfaces. Basically just rounding it. You don't want sharp corners, because that'll chip. Those will chip. And you'll have to make another one for the customer that bought it and is mad at you. Now, the old red soft rib to do the final smoothing on this surface. It's not going to be perfect because, like I said, this clay's got quite a bit of grog in it. But it'll be pretty nice. It's May 8th, and I am looking out the window, and it's snowing. Gotta love northern Michigan. Pandemic, COVID-19 is happening currently, and got the latest spring ever. I mean, I was supposed to do a show in Holland on the lake last weekend, I think, and it got canceled, thank God, but it got canceled because of the virus. But man, that weather would have just been brutal. So, that's the way it is. Alright, so you can see that the surface is getting much, much smoother. Really nice. Still not perfect, but, I mean, whatever. So, that's the finished thing. My last move is to carve a little circle here. And I stamp there with my maker's mark. Put it back on the wheel and just hit the rim once to smooth that out. Sometimes it can get kind of flat spots from attaching it. But man, that's it. And that's a thing of beauty. That's easy money. People want those. So, good luck. Try it smaller first. Don't try and make them this big right away. All right.